But being able to handle that through yoga and learning how your body reacts, how your body works, how to make your body feel good, how to make yourself feel safe is something that you can carry with you outside of treatment and help you cope in the real world.
Any behavior that has negative consequences but is associated with craving and relapse and loss of control over that behavior, despite those negative consequences. Addiction is a continuum from the highly respected workaholic at the apex of the social pyramid to the street-haunted drug addict who is suffering from mental illness and facing social opprobrium at the very base. In our society, there is hardly anybody who is not affected by addiction, whether we realize it or not.
We need integrative interventions that address the whole person, that allow for adaptability in a sobriety plan, that if you relapse, okay, let's get back to it. Where it's not this end-all be-all, where it's a adaptive treatment process. We need these things that offer a landscape for self-knowing, to recover and reclaim who we are beneath the suffering and find our way back home.
I'm sober 2017, so I'm 6 years sober. And in my recovery, the biggest thing has been keeping up with yoga. It's the one thing that gets me out of my head and back into my body, and learning to love myself again. And because addiction it separates you, it separates you from your family, it separates you from yourself and your higher power, everything. But yoga is about union and coming together. And so I feel it's so necessary for people in recovery. It was necessary for me.
Do you think it's interesting that we still do something that is so spiritual as
Yes.
yoga? Because I had the same type of story with that.
Yeah.
We did all these things that literally, they robbed our living spirit, turned us into zombies of sorts for whatever dope we were doing. And we were still doing yoga. That was like a lifeline of our living spirit.
It was. That's great because that was my lifeline. That was the reason I would leave my house, is to go to a yoga class.
With my experience, in addiction recovery and bringing this to treatment centers, in addiction, we shoot down our nervous systems. Drugs and alcohol, kill brain cells. They deteriorate your brain. So, you come into this world and you get sober, you don't know how to live life and you don't know how to react to situations in a sane and normal way. And people telling you how to react in a situation is not going to help. My experience doing it, getting through to a person through the body, somatically, is what's going to teach them through their own experience how to function in life, because we can't just get out of treatment and jump into the world and be ready for it. There's too much. It's overstimulation.
I took a workshop once and I remember the leader, she said, people think of yoga and she automatically jumped into, I believe it was Warrior 2. I see it in Tree. Those are the traditional. You think yoga and that's the image of what it actually is. And it's not. It's just so much deeper, so much more. And I remember in the substance abuse field, having to give up, even though it's something that's harmful for them, but having to give up a way of life where they're, constantly on this road to, take their drugs, use their drugs, recover from their drugs, and have to remove all of that and then just throw them into rehab and say, you can't do this anymore, you have to change your life. And I remember them coming in and saying, I have to change. Okay, so that in itself is just such a difficult concept to see. So I see in that yoga is about not the change, but the transition. People see yoga as a journey as opposed to a technique, an exercise. If we learn to transition, it doesn't become finite. It's just part of the continuum.
There's a lot of barrier in treatment or treatment barriers because of the lack of education, the quick judgments, assuming that it's either, this complex social issue and we just don't know what to do about it, or it's an individual problem, you chose that, shame on you. One of my favorite concepts around addiction recovery is from Deepak Chopra. He says that addiction is searching for God in all the wrong places. And this is where the spiritual and why 12 steps and things that have a spiritual texture to it tend to be really effective for addiction. Yoga is the 12 steps. The 12 steps for recovery, if you break it down, it 1,000% is the journey of using the yamas, niyamas, practices. It's so aligned, and for those who really struggle with either bringing the 12 steps into a religious context or don't know where to begin, applying that from a moral framework is going to be really effective for recovery. And just yoga itself, creating routine, learning how to reclaim our spaces, changing neurobiology, disrupting negative feedback loops. There's just so much to serve and support this community.
So my brother was a recovering heroin addict. He struggled for 10 plus years. Tried everything, again, therapies, and he was a psychology major, was working on his master's. Again, I would have conversations with him about, okay, there's more, to us. I mean, it's not just a pill, it's not just, this therapy, this model that, for the healing. So he knew that there was something that was missing. I knew there was something missing in his healing journey, but we didn't have that. We didn't know where to go or what to look for. But he did pass away. He relapsed, and unfortunately, it was a bad accident, and he died instantly. But that kind of drove me to want to know more. What is it? There has to be more. And for my own healing journey, I suffered from domestic abuse. It took me 5 years to leave, and then finally, when I did leave, I'm bombarded with all of these different things. You need to be on medication, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's no, I just need to be heard. I need to be seen. I need to be able to have a space to heal. And that's where I found you. So here I am.
And I started trying it, originally for the result of losing weight and, feeding my eating disorder. But then after several weeks of committing to doing that, it turned into a lot more. It wasn't like a form of exercise where I was punishing myself, which was something I was so used to doing for so long. It became something that was empowering. It made me feel good in my body for the first time since I was a kid, since before the eating disorder started. And that's really where it took off to being something of more than just a physical exercise that I was gonna give up after a few weeks. It was something that stuck with me. When I got into high school, I got into drugs and alcohol and took it too far, and I became a drug addict. But there was one thing that stayed consistent even through my addiction, and that was my yoga practice, which is incredible because drugs and alcohol, it's something that separates you from everything that you love. But yoga was my one escape from that darkness. It was something that, I'd actually be able to leave the house if I was going to yoga class, or if I was at home, or just even if I was detoxing, just getting on the floor and moving my body and getting out of my head. And yoga served that purpose for me of, there was a meaning to life. I didn't need to die that day. There was something more.
to yoga from your personal experience and what helped you, what fed your soul, and now you're going out and sharing it with people. I think it's great that you're going into a treatment center and you can relate, right? Like it's not just someone. Like anybody can learn how to teach yoga, but when you can really connect with people on a deeper level because of your own personal experiences, I think that's where it gets really powerful.
It does. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to help these women, and you are too. Just because of our experience.
I mean, 200 hour, you start with yamas and niyamas, right?
Right.
And you're reading about non-violence and how they're defining it, and that part of it is trusting that other people in your life will figure it out, and that when you go and you're like, I'm right, I know this, you should be going to AA, you should be doing X, Y, Z, that you're trying to solve for them and not allowing them the space to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's a violence within itself.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me.
As we practice more yoga, or as we learn more yoga, what's fascinating again is that we allow people more room to do those things.
I think it's a part of you can support someone and maybe help to guide a little in the right journey, right, without being overbearing. And I think that goes back to just the empathy piece and recognizing that we're all human, we all have our own struggles.
Actually, and it is a program that my brother did go through. They provide assistance for their clients that are going through, recovery through the legal system, and more of it's a therapeutic foundation. And what I am doing is basically my card is entered into, it's called the fishbowl. So once they complete certain steps, they're able to get rewarded. And so they get to pick a reward. So a free yoga class is one of the rewards. And I have made it to where it can be for themselves or for their family, because, we know it's important to have their family there. So it's once a month that they get to, my name will be drawn, and I'll get to do an hour and go and spend time in really, again, providing them that space and just sit down and just be still and becoming aware. And working on that mindfulness and giving them that space and compassion. I'm sorry, this is very dear and personal to me, but being compassionate and looking at them and they're this, amazing, divine human being. I think for the most part, everywhere they go, it's a clinic, it's a doctor's office, it's a courtroom, it's something that's just reminding them of everything that they've done wrong, and being able to provide them with this space is just such a beautiful experience. And I think it touches their soul, and I think that's the most important thing that they need for healing, is just giving them that compassionate, unconditional love, and letting them know that they're a divine human being no matter what.